I was scrolling through Bumble at 11:47 p.m. on a Thursday night, half asleep on my couch in my Kensington flat, when his message arrived. "Hi Sophie, you're absolutely stunning. I'd love to get to know you better." His name was Marcus Webb, and his profile picture showed a man in his mid-20s with sharp jawlines, dark eyes that seemed to penetrate through the screen, and a smile that felt like it was meant only for me. I should have swiped left. Most guys on dating apps are either trying to sell cryptocurrency, asking for nudes within 5 minutes, or copy-pasting the same generic opening line to 50 different women. But Marcus was different. His bio said he was a venture capitalist living in Mayfair, educated at Oxford, and passionate about travel and contemporary art. Hey everyone, welcome back to HOA Backdoor Stories. If you're new here, subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell. Before we start, let me know in the comments, what country are you watching from? And what's your HOA horror story? Let's jump into today's episode. Everything about him screamed money, intelligence, and sophistication. Within 3 weeks, I felt like I'd known him my entire life. We talked about everything. My struggles at the marketing firm where I worked, how my parents pressured me to settle down, how I'd always felt different from other girls my age, how I dreamed of starting my own business someday. He listened, actually listened. He asked follow-up questions. He remembered details I'd mentioned in passing. He told me about his family business, his ex-girlfriend who didn't understand him, his secret fear of ending up alone despite his success. We moved from Bumble to WhatsApp, then to calls. His voice was smooth, confident, with an accent that sounded like he'd been raised between London and somewhere exotic. I found myself waking up to his good morning messages. I started checking my phone compulsively, hoping to see his name. My best friend Emma asked me one afternoon why I was smiling so much, and I told her about Marcus. She warned me. She always did when I got excited about someone new. "Just be careful, Soph. You don't really know him." But I did know him, or at least I thought I did. He knew where I worked on Regent Street. He knew that I took the same route home every evening, walking through Green Park to my apartment. He knew that my parents were away in Cornwall for the month. He knew I lived alone. And most importantly, he knew exactly how to make me feel like I was the only woman in the world who truly understood him. 3 weeks into our conversations, Marcus sent me a photograph. "This is me last weekend in Ibiza," the caption read. But something was wrong. The man in the photo, he was handsome, yes, but something about his face seemed familiar in a way I couldn't place. I did what I should have done from the beginning. I downloaded the image and ran it through Google's reverse image search. My stomach dropped. The photo appeared on at least 15 different dating profiles across multiple platforms. Different names, different stories, different cities. Marcus Webb was a lie. And in that moment, sitting alone in my flat at midnight, I realized something far more terrifying. I wasn't his target. I was his bait. The question that paralyzed me wasn't, who is he really? It was, how many others are there? Because when I searched deeper, when I dug through the darker corners of Reddit and Facebook missing persons groups, I found them. Girls. Dozens of them. Different names, different ages, different cities, but all matching the same pattern. All had been contacted by men with expensive profiles on dating apps. All had felt special. All had vanished. Some had been missing for over a year. And then I found her. A girl named Emma Patterson. Brown hair, bright eyes, a smile that suggested she still believed in the goodness of people. She'd gone missing from Bristol 14 months ago. Her last known contact was with someone named David Thompson on Hinge. The photo attached to David's profile was identical to Marcus Webb, just with a different name. And according to a comment left by Emma's mother on a missing persons Facebook group, police had found nothing. The case had gone cold. That's when I made my decision. Instead of blocking Marcus, instead of reporting him and walking away like any sensible person would do, I decided to do something dangerous. I decided to help the police catch him by becoming his next target. The next morning, I called the Metropolitan Police's cybercrime unit and asked to speak with someone about a potential serial predator operating on dating apps. After 30 minutes of being transferred between departments, I finally reached Detective Tom Harris, a man who sounded like he'd heard every possible story about online crime and had grown tired of being surprised by human depravity. I explained everything: Marcus Webb, the reverse image search, the Reddit threads, the missing girls, Emma Patterson. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. Then he asked, "Are you safe?" I told him I was. He asked, "Have you met him in person?" I said no. He exhaled deeply and said, "Thank God for that. Ms. Mitchell, I need you to listen to me very carefully. What you've discovered is extremely dangerous. I want you to stop communicating with this person immediately." But then I asked him the question that changed everything. What if I didn't? What if I kept talking to him? What if I helped you catch him? Detective Harris didn't answer immediately. I could hear him typing, clicking through files on his computer, accessing records I assumed I wasn't supposed to know existed. When he finally spoke, his voice had changed. It was no longer the voice of a tired bureaucrat. It was the voice of someone who had been waiting for a lead like this. "I'm going to need to involve my supervisor," he said, "and you're going to need to understand that what you're proposing is extremely risky. But yes, Ms. Mitchell, if you're willing to cooperate, we might finally be able to stop this man." Within 48 hours, I was sitting in a police station in Victoria, in a small gray room with Detective Harris and his supervisor, Detective Inspector Rebecca Chen, a woman in her 50s with sharp eyes and the kind of authority that made you immediately understand why she'd risen to her position. They explained the operation to me. I would continue communication with Marcus Webb, but under their supervision. Every message would be screened. Every call would be recorded. Every detail he revealed would be cross-referenced with missing persons databases across the United Kingdom and Europe. My role was simple: appear to fall deeper under his spell, create the conditions where he would trust me enough to arrange a meeting, and then we would arrest him. "What makes you think he'll agree to meet you?" I asked. Detective Chen smiled. It was not a comforting smile. "Because predators like him have a pattern. They groom, they build trust, they create emotional dependency, and once they feel they have complete control, they always want to meet in person. That's when they escalate. That's when the real danger begins." Over the next 2 weeks, my life became a strange duality. By day, I was Sophie Mitchell, marketing executive, pretending to go to work, pretending to live a normal life. By night, I was a character in an elaborate fiction we were constructing together. I sent Marcus messages carefully crafted by Detective Harris, designed to deepen his attachment while revealing more about his true identity. I told him I was falling for him. I told him I wanted to meet him. I told him I'd been thinking about him constantly, and in return, Marcus, or whoever he really was, began to reveal himself in small ways. He made a joke that referenced a location in Bristol. He mentioned knowing someone at the university where 3 of the missing girls had been students. He sent me a photograph of what he claimed was his apartment, and when Detective Harris ran the image through geolocation software, it came back to a house in Croydon, South London, registered to a James Sullivan, a name that matched none of his dating profiles. The pieces were clicking into place, but the more we learned, the more terrifying it became. Because in the background of one of his apartment photos, Detective Harris noticed something that would change everything: a door that didn't belong to the standard floor plan of the building, a reinforced door with multiple locks. "I think there might be girls in that house," Detective Chen said quietly, looking at the photograph. "I think he's been keeping them there." My hands were shaking as I typed the next message to Marcus. It was a simple line: "I want to see you. I want to know you're real." The response came within minutes. "Tomorrow, 2 p.m., Maid of Honor Pub, Stratford. It's public, but private enough that we can talk. I've been waiting so long for this, Sophie." I showed the message to Detective Harris. His jaw tightened. "This is it," he said. "He's ready to move forward. This is when predators like him become most dangerous, because they feel they've accomplished the grooming phase. The next phase is isolation and control." Detective Chen outlined the plan. Undercover officers would be positioned throughout the pub. I would wear a wire, a small device hidden beneath my clothing that would record everything he said and every word I spoke. The moment he made any admission of guilt, any confession that connected him to the missing girls, they would move in. "And if he doesn't confess?" I asked. Detective Harris looked at me steadily. "Then we use what we've gathered to build a case. But Sophie, I need you to understand something. Men like this, they often have weapons. They often have contingency plans. If this goes wrong, if he realizes what's happening, things could escalate very quickly." The day of the meeting arrived with gray London skies and the kind of drizzle that makes everything feel more isolated. I dressed carefully, a blue blouse that allowed the wire to be hidden comfortably, jeans and boots. Detective Harris fitted the device to me in a van parked 2 streets away from the pub. The wire was so small I could barely feel it, but psychologically, knowing I was being recorded made everything feel both safer and infinitely more dangerous. As I walked toward the maid of honor, I could see the undercover officers positioned at various tables, pretending to drink coffee or read newspapers. Detective Chen was in my earpiece, ready to guide me through every moment. "Remember, Sophie, you're in control here," she whispered. "If at any point you feel unsafe, you say the word Kensington, and we come in immediately. Do you understand?" I confirmed I understood, but my mouth was dry and my heart was pounding so hard I was sure everyone in the pub could hear it. And then I saw him. Marcus Webb walked through the door, and even though I knew his photograph was stolen, even though I knew his name was a lie, my body reacted as if I was seeing someone I loved for the first time. He was handsome. He was charming. He was exactly what I'd imagined for 3 weeks of conversations. He smiled when he saw me, and his eyes crinkled at the corners in a way that seemed genuine. That was the moment I understood something crucial. Predators don't look like monsters. They look like everyone else. They look like the person you've been dreaming about. "Sophie," he said, taking my hands, "I can't tell you how long I've waited for this moment." I forced myself to smile back. "Me too," I said, and the wire recorded every word. We sat at a corner table, and Marcus ordered wine for both of us without asking what I wanted. It was a small gesture, but it revealed something important. His need for control was evident in the smallest actions. As we talked, I became acutely aware of the subtle danger in his presence. There was something behind his eyes that didn't match the warmth of his smile. Something clinical, something calculating. He asked me questions designed to test my loyalty, to see how much I'd share, to understand my vulnerabilities. "Do your parents know you're meeting me?" he asked casually, swirling his wine. "No," I admitted. "I wanted to keep this special, just between us." He smiled. "Good. Your parents sound controlling. They wouldn't understand what we have." This was the grooming I'd read about in the files Detective Harris had shown me, the isolation technique, the positioning of himself as the only person who truly understood me. As the conversation continued, I steered it toward his past. "You never told me about your previous relationships," I said, leaning forward with what I hoped was genuine curiosity. "There was someone before, wasn't there? Someone who didn't appreciate you?" His expression shifted. For a moment, something darker crossed his face. "Her name was Emma," he said quietly. "She was beautiful, like you. But she didn't understand. She tried to leave me. When someone leaves you, Sophie, when they betray that trust, you have to teach them the consequences." My blood turned to ice. This was it. This was the confession. Detective Chen's voice was urgent in my ear. "Keep him talking. We need specifics." I forced my voice to remain steady. "What happened to her?" I asked. "Is she still around?" He leaned back and studied me carefully. For a moment I thought he'd realized something was wrong. His hand reached across the table, and for a split second I thought he might hurt me right there in the middle of the pub. But instead, he took my hand gently. "She's somewhere safe," he said. "Somewhere she can't hurt me anymore. And soon, Sophie, you'll understand why I need to keep my people close. Why I need to protect them." "Keep them?" I whispered. He nodded. "In my house in Croydon. I have a space there. A place where my girls live. where they're protected from the harsh world, where they learn to trust me completely. My entire body wanted to scream, to run, to pull the wire and bring the police in immediately. But I stayed frozen, my hand in his, my voice steady as I asked, "How many girls do you have?" He smiled. It was the smile of someone proud of his accomplishment. "Right now, 4, but I'm always looking for more, the right ones, the ones like you, Sophie, the ones I can mold into what I need." "Kensington," I said quietly. Detective Chen's voice came through my earpiece. "Go, go, go. Everyone move in now." Within seconds, the pub transformed from a quiet afternoon gathering into controlled chaos. Officers revealed themselves. Weapons were drawn. The man holding my hand, the man I'd been talking to for 3 weeks, the man I'd built a fantasy relationship with, was forced to the ground. He didn't resist. He didn't fight. Instead, he laughed, a cold, hollow sound that echoed through the pub as officers placed handcuffs on him. "You think you've won?" he said, looking directly at me, still smiling. "You think this ends here? I have friends, Sophie, people who know what you did, people who will make sure you pay for this betrayal." It took 3 officers to remove him from the pub. The raid on the house in Croydon happened simultaneously with Marcus's arrest. I wasn't allowed to witness it. Detective Chen insisted I go to a safe location and wait for updates. I spent those hours in a hotel room, staring at my phone, unable to stop shaking. The wire was removed from my body. The police offered me counseling, support, victim services, but all I could think about was whether they'd found them, whether they'd found the girls. Detective Harris called me at 11 p.m. His voice was different than I'd ever heard it. It contained something I hadn't expected from him: joy, relief. "Sophie, we found them," he said. "We found all 4 of them alive." I broke down. I couldn't help it. The emotion that had been building since the moment I realized Marcus was a predator came pouring out. "Emma Patterson?" I asked through tears. "Is she—" "She's alive, malnourished, traumatized, but alive. She's at St. Bartholomew's Hospital right now being treated. Sophie, because of what you did today, 4 girls will get their lives back." The truth about the man calling himself Marcus Webb emerged over the following weeks as police conducted their investigation. His real name was Julian Ashford, a 42-year-old man from Manchester who had been running dating app scams since 2015. He'd stolen the identities of at least 16 different men and used them to create false profiles across every major dating platform. The predatory network was even more extensive than we'd initially believed. He had accomplices, 3 other men who helped him catfish victims, gather intelligence, and facilitate the isolation and kidnapping of his targets. The house in Croydon contained far more than what had been visible in the photographs. In the basement, they discovered a reinforced room where he'd been keeping his victims. The reinforced door Detective Chen had spotted was actually a soundproof chamber. The police found journals documenting his crimes, detailed accounts of each girl he'd targeted, how he'd manipulated them, what he'd done to them while they were imprisoned. The psychological brutality was almost worse than the physical crimes. He had broken these women down systematically, convinced them that he was their savior, that the outside world was dangerous, that they needed him to survive. Emma Patterson, when she was finally released from the hospital, gave a statement that would become central to the prosecution's case. She described 18 months of captivity, of psychological manipulation so complete that she'd begun to believe the outside world no longer existed. She spoke about how he would alternate between extreme kindness and brutal punishment, how he'd convinced her that the other girls he was keeping were her friends and lovers, how he'd created an entire false reality to keep them compliant. The trial lasted 4 months. I testified for 3 days. Each day I had to relive the conversations, the meetings, the moment in the pub. Julian Ashford sat in the dock, still maintaining his composure, still seemingly unable to comprehend that his actions were wrong. He showed no remorse. When the verdict came back, guilty on all counts, multiple life sentences, I expected to feel vindicated. Instead, I felt hollow. The victory seemed small compared to what his victims had endured. 6 months after Julian Ashford's conviction, I stood in front of a camera at a BBC studio and launched a campaign called Real Talk Dating App Safety. I'd taken the experience that nearly destroyed me and transformed it into something that might protect others. The campaign focused on educating young people about the red flags of online predators, the tactics of catfishing, and the importance of trusting their instincts. Emma Patterson worked with me on the campaign. She'd recovered remarkably, though Detective Harris explained to me that trauma like she'd experienced never truly goes away. You just learn to live with it differently. We created educational videos, worked with dating app companies to improve their security features, and spoke at universities across the UK about digital safety. The Metropolitan Police expanded its cybercrime unit based partially on the success of our operation. Detective Chen was promoted. Detective Harris became something of an advisor to dating app platforms, consulting on how to identify and remove predatory accounts more efficiently. The 4 victims that were found in the Croydon house have all been placed in witness protection and are in various stages of recovery. Some have reconnected with their families. Some are taking legal action against the dating app companies they believe should have detected the fraudulent accounts earlier. The judicial system is slowly catching up to the reality of online crime. New legislation was introduced specifically addressing catfishing and online grooming, making it easier to prosecute predators who operate across multiple platforms and jurisdictions. But the most important thing I learned from this experience wasn't about catching criminals or changing laws. It was about understanding that danger doesn't announce itself. Evil doesn't come wearing a mask that says predator. It comes wearing the face of someone who listens to you, who understands you, who makes you feel special and seen. It comes through a screen, wrapped in carefully constructed lies and stolen identity. And the only defense against it is awareness. It's skepticism. It's the willingness to question the too good to be true, to run the reverse image searches, to trust the instinct that something feels wrong even when everything looks right. Julian Ashford is currently serving 8 consecutive life sentences at HMP Belmarsh. He will never be released, but every week I receive messages from people who've discovered that someone they were talking to online wasn't real, that they'd been targeted by predators, that they'd narrowly escaped the same fate that almost claimed Emma Patterson and the 3 other women. And I tell them the same thing I wish someone had told me before I matched with Marcus Webb. Your safety is more important than your desire to be loved. Your instincts are not paranoia. Your skepticism is not cruelty. And if something feels wrong, it probably is. The digital age has made it easier to connect with people, but it's also made it easier for predators to hunt. We've all learned this lesson the hard way, and hopefully, by sharing these stories, by shining a light on how easily we can be deceived, we can make it harder for the hunters and easier for the hunted to escape. Because in the end, that's what this story really is. Not about catching one predator, but about empowering everyone who uses dating apps to be their own detective, their own protector, and their own hero. Thanks so much for watching. Let me know in the comments where you're watching from. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. See you in the next episode.